when you combine puberty and menopause, oh boy.
Your hormones are surging. Mine are downshifting. That's a combustible combination.
What families have explained this dynamic to anybody?
They are dysregulated as all get out. They cannot stand anything we do.
Hot flashes, bad sleep, brain fog, mood swings, unpredictable irritability.
So much of what women go through, we don't think of as symptoms.
All right, this episode I've been waiting for all season. You know I've been talking to you about this all summer.
I think it's an important one. I know.
Tell me the top 3 things about menopause you hate.
Well, Reena, I actually have some news to share. Oh. I went on hormone replacement therapy.
Oh, really? That's huge. What made you decide to do it?
I was having too many symptoms.
Okay.
And I think that that's something we need to talk and think about, is that so much of what women go through, we don't think of as symptoms. And so I was having trouble sleeping. I was having hot flashes. I could not remember words that I know I knew. I was like kind of grumpy all the time. I felt lousy, low energy. And I'm an energy person.
Yeah, you are.
And so I finally wrote all my symptoms down and I went and talked to my doctor and she was like, sure, we can put you on it. In my case, it was just that simple. But what I will say is right now I'm hating nothing about menopause because I feel so much better.
You really feel the difference.
I really feel the difference. So what I will say in terms of what I hate is I think we've gone a long way without talking and thinking about these like the symptoms they are and helping people get the care they deserve.
And I think there's been so much stigma for so long around HRT that people are trying to dispel, and the safetiness of it. You know, I feel my mother's generation, it was still so new, right? Our mother's generation, they just really didn't know much. And so much has changed in what we know and how wonderful it can be for women.
It's true. Susan Dominus wrote a really excellent article for the New York Times Magazine called Women Have Been Misled About Menopause. Now, Susan's my friend. I feel like I need to say that in full disclosure. She's also a super genius writer. And it's a very, very balanced look at exactly what you're describing, sort of the historical landscape here of women and HRT and menopause treatment and the presentation of studies. So, like, I am not a physician. If a woman is struggling with this, she should talk to her doctor. But I think that talk to your doctor piece has not been happening for a lot of women when it should be happening.
And Lisa, we'll put Susan Dominus's New York Times article in the show notes linked so people can take a look at it.
Yep. And we'll do it as a gift link. So if you're a subscriber, it won't be a problem. And if you're not a subscriber, you should be able to access it.
I'm so happy you've kind of had a handle now on menopause and it's been transformative for you. But when you combine puberty and menopause, oh boy, I don't think that is something anybody's talking about. So we're going to be talking about that today. I want to read you the letter. Dear Dr. Lisa and Reena, I'm 49, a single mom, and firmly in the throes of perimenopause. The hot flashes, bad sleep, and brain fog are bad enough, but the mood swings and unpredictable irritability are what really throw me. Meanwhile, my 13-year-old daughter is hitting puberty full force. She's moody, weepy, and snapping at me even if I breathe wrong. To make it more complicated, I also have a 16-year-old son who hardly talks to me these days unless he needs a ride or money. I love my kids and I know what they're going through is normal, but I feel like I've lost my footing. How can I support them when I sometimes feel so off balance myself? Signed, running out of patience and estrogen. I like that she's got a great sense of humor despite going through all of this. First off, what is normal, Lisa?
Well, that's sort of this interesting question, right? Like she talks about what her teenagers are going through is normal, and she's right. So here's what we have. We have a whole bunch of symptoms related to perimenopause, and then we have normal adolescence, and we have the two together and like combustible city, right? I mean, it's a terrible combination. I think part of what we were starting to think together about at the beginning is people have said, physicians have said for years, well, this is a normal transition, right? Going through menopause is a normal transition. It's a natural thing, which it is. But I don't want to overstate it, but I almost feel like that's a place where normal or natural has been a little bit weaponized. And I think there's people who, are far more, strident on this point than I am, basically saying like, this has been used to ignore or deny things that women really, are struggling with and deny them care for things that they could get care for. sure, it's normal or natural for all of these symptoms to unfold in the course of perimenopause and menopause. But I'm going to keep hammering on the word symptoms because I think we don't think of them as symptoms. We think of symptoms as things like you totally can't control, like a cough or a fever or something like that. I think when we get into the universe of perimenopause and menopausal symptoms, we're like, well, bad sleep. Well, if I only exercised more, or if I only drank less coffee, or word finding. She talks about brain fog. That's word finding. Like that's one of the symptoms of brain fog is like you cannot come up with words. And then we can be like, oh, it's just aging, right? Or, oh, if I were paying better attention. And so I think there's this double system going on where physicians have, I think everybody's agreeing these days, not taken menopause nearly seriously enough and not cared for people with the care they deserve. I'm just going to go on record as saying that. But I also think that women who are going through it, probably as a function of how the medical system has responded to this, second guess what's going on with themselves and don't think of it as a straight up symptom. And if you don't think of it as a symptom, you're not going to tell your doctor about it. Hey friends, we know that finding reliable guidance on raising kids is not easy to do. That's why the Ask Lisa podcast is free. We want everyone to have access to tested, trustworthy advice. If you want to help us reach more families, you can. All you have to do is click like, hit subscribe, and leave a thought or question in the comments. Every interaction on this channel helps more families find us. Okay, now let's get back to it.
Is it happening more often these days when you've got a household with menopause and puberty? And has that always been the case?
I think it's more true as women have babies later, right? Or as they become parents later, right? So I had my second daughter when I was 40. So I'm 55, she's 15, right? I mean, like, we were like right where this parent is in terms of when she turned 13 and when I was really struggling through this. So I think that as we see these later babies coming along or parents, becoming parents later, like my mom was 26 when she had me. Yeah. When I was 13, she was 39. Like she was still, by most measures, nowhere near this.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense too. What do you think women should be doing? I want to address the menopause first because it reminds me of, we talk often about the plane and the oxygen mask, right? Like if you don't help yourself, you can't help anybody else. And thank you, by the way, for sharing this because it just helps us understand what you're navigating and what really worked, which is different for everybody. But what made you decide, all right, HRT is the right thing? I feel like there isn't enough awareness about symptoms and what you can do.
Yeah, so I was reluctant to do it. I think I sort of had this like, it's a phase of life and it's natural. And I was looking at stuff saying like, it gets better with time, that it starts to really improve over time. And I'm tough. Right?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
And so I can tough this out, right? I'm still managing quite well. But my mood just started to become so not me, right? Like my mood baseline and my energy baseline, my whole life has been really high, right? Like I got juice and I start in a good mood. And I would find that sometimes I would achieve that space, but that most of the time I was below it, struggling to get there. As opposed to if I think about me 5 years ago, like I hang out there and every once in a while I take a dip. But I will say, Reena, like it still took me a really long time to get there. And I finally had a regular appointment with my physician who I adore. And so I actually did start to write down my symptoms, which for me, even though I know forgetting words is not just spacey, it's a symptom, it still took me a long time to get there. But I showed up for my appointment. I'm like, here are my symptoms. And I just walked her through it. I mean, my sleep was garbage. I have definitely been struggling with hot flashes, which is connected to sleep. Word finding has been hard. Mood has not been great. Energy has not been great. And she was like, sure, no problem. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, it's that easy? She was so lovely. She walked me through all the science. She basically said, yeah, we've misrepresented the findings that were there. We have not done right by women for years. I mean, she was lovely about it, talking about her own experience and talking about, regrets as a physician about all that was not done for women. But then Reena, she gave me the subscription for these patches. And I call it the first pharmacy's like, we're out. I'm like, transfer the prescription to another pharmacy. And I got to the other pharmacy and they're like, we don't have enough for 6 months. I'm like, what do you have? What do you have? I was like, not even messing around. And within 2 weeks, Reena, within 2
Really?
weeks. I just want people to know, like, you need to talk to your physicians. Everything this mom is describing,
Mhm.
these are symptoms. This is not her not being tough. This is not her, making this up. It feels like you feel a little like, is this really real?
Mhm.
And, people get to decide what they get to decide, but I would never want somebody to be struggling like she's struggling and not ask for help.
What's funny is we do so many episodes about here are the symptoms I'm seeing in my child. We've written them down. And when you just mentioned you wrote down your symptoms and everything and put it out on a sheet of paper, I'm like, oh my God, of course. But I would never think to walk into my doctor's office with that.
I was surprised that I did. And it's interesting for me, Reena, also, and then I want to get to what to do with these teenagers and what this sweet mother should do. Because they would be cyclical for me, I was finding that I would have better and worse patches.
Mm.
I think that also delayed my request for
Mm.
help
That's good
because I
to
would
know.
think like, oh, I was exercising more and then I slept better and then I felt sharper and more energetic. See, this is in my power. And then it would sort of degrade again. I went through a lot of rounds of that
Yeah.
before I was like, maybe I
You need
should
to,
bring this
yeah.
up.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
I think that you're speaking about it is going to help a lot of people out there who can connect the dots faster. I want to move to the children here because what we do know, puberty is normal, just like menopause is normal. And what's your advice here for the daughter that she's struggling with?
I mean, this is like the most classic possible explanation or description of a 13-year-old. And I will tell you, Rita, like, wait, read it again. Like, what did she say the 13-year-old's
Yeah,
doing?
hitting puberty full force, moody, weepy, snapping at me, even if I breathe wrong.
Okay, so let's take the moody, weepy, snapping, and let's
Yeah.
take the breathe wrong separately. But what I love about this letter, I'm like, this is why 13 is so hard. It is so hard because they are dysregulated as all get out, especially the girls because they're a little bit ahead on puberty relative to boys. And then they cannot stand anything we do. Anything we do rubs them the wrong way.
Why is that? Why is that?
It's a very real reason, which is at 13, kids are suddenly really starting to think about their own identities, right? They're eighth graders for the most part. And I've written about this like often as like they're trying to like articulate their own brand. Like they're figuring out their own brand. And so this is a deal, Rena, and it's like so funny to me. It's horrible to live through, but it's like so amazing to watch other families like have to grapple with this because I just have seen it so many times. The deal with a 13-year-old is anything that their parent does, because they're still so intertwined with their parent, that does not fit with their emerging sense of their brand is annoying to them because the parent reflects on them. I remember when my older daughter was in eighth grade and it was time for back to school night, and I like just laid out outfits. I was like, what would you like me to wear? Because what I wore to eighth grade reflected so heavily on her as far as she was
Wow.
concerned.
Really?
Yeah, I think that a lot of eighth graders are like, oh, about their parents, mortified. There's this quality of like, the kids' brand is still reflected in us. So anything we do that is not matching their emerging brand, it's not cool enough, it's not, whatever enough, is annoying to them. At the same time, anything we do that is like the brand they see themselves starting to adopt is also annoying to them because they're working to establish their own identity. Okay, so the way this played out at my house with my daughter who's now 22, okay, when she turned 13, she got really into Beyonce. I had been really into Beyonce for a very long time. And I remember one time I had Beyonce on in the kitchen and I was bopping to it in the kitchen. And she comes in and she's like, Mom, stop. She was like so mad at me.
For your love of
Because
Beyonce, because she got there first, she
Beyonce
thinks.
was,
Yeah.
she thought she got there first. And I was now on her turf. I was stepping on her brand. Okay. So Reena, here's what I've just articulated. If it is like their emerging brand, they don't want you doing it. If it is unlike their emerging brand, they don't want you doing it. Anything you do when they are 13 is bug at them. That's normal for that kid, but that plus an adult who has like no patience and is exhausted and is hot flashing every 5 minutes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a combustible combination.
Is it different for boys versus girls? Like the son here, she talks about, who's 16, by the way, not 13, says hardly talks to me unless he needs a ride or money.
I think that's unfortunately, I think a lot of parents would say that their 16-year-old son can feel very, very remote. That kind of withdrawn, quiet, sphinx-like quality. So much good work is coming out now about how to get boys talking. We had our fabulous guests, Christopher Pepper and Joanna Schroeder, about their book, Talk to Your Boys, which everybody should read. I think it's really typical. I don't think it's necessarily great. When I think about this from the perspective of the letter writer, I think there's two things that are really hard. One is it hurts, right? We really like our kids.
Yeah, especially if they were close to you or were one way and all of a sudden the switch turns off and they're just cold and distant. It hurts.
Yeah, you miss them, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. This is also a single parent. And I will tell you, I've gotten to work with a lot of single parents over the years. It's a lot more painful when you don't have a partner in the house being, who's getting the same treatment or who can reassure you or who can be, sort of sweet with you about the fact that the kid's being kind of icy. From the perspective of this letter writer, I think she's got the double challenge of, it's not so great when your kid's acting like this. And on top of that, it's really hard when you don't have a partner to support you, or make you feel like it's not you, right? And I think that that's a really tough thing. So yeah, she's got her hands full.
What do you think families need to step back and think about if you're in this situation?
So I think she should talk to her doctor if she hasn't already. I'm not saying that that's going to be the solution. And there are a lot of solutions that are non-medical, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy has been found to help with sleep, which can help with, overall mood and everything. There are non-hormonal, I'm not a physician again, but I've looked into this quite a bit. There are non-hormonal options that can reduce hot flashes if that's a real problem. There's a range of interventions available. She should be looking into them. I don't want her to feel like she just got to tough this out. So I think that piece is really important. Okay, just to be honest though, getting to the doctor sometimes, right? Getting an appointment, making that happen. I don't want to be casual about that. She could just go check in and it would be no big deal. That might be hard. But I think putting wheels in motion on that is an important thing. Okay, let's take the kids separately because these are two very different ways of being a teenager. Hopefully it feels better to hear how natural and normal it is that her 13-year-old's acting like a 13-year-old and that they are very challenging. I will tell you, Reena, the most urgent calls I get from people are often, I'm like, 13-year-old. Yep. It just is so hard on families. I think we should talk for a minute about why the kid is so dysregulated because that actually is also a hormonal effect, but it's one that's, there's no treatment for it because it's actually how it's supposed to be. I think that's a way to think about it.
The moodiness you're talking about with the 13-year-old, weepy, moody, snappy, you're just saying that's hormonal and there isn't really much you can do. It's a phase.
It's a phase. And what's actually happening, it's actually pretty interesting stuff. So, this kid's going through puberty, which is where her hormones are making all of this eventually very good stuff happen, right? And a lot of it's driving brain development. But the way this works is that the brain remodels in the order that it developed, which is from the emotion centers, which are right over the back of the neck, up to the perspective maintaining systems behind your forehead. And so 13-year-olds, they're in this juncture where we sort of talk about them sometimes as having a gawky brain.
Yeah.
Where their emotion systems have been upgraded, but their perspective maintaining systems haven't. And so they dysregulate really easily. So when they're calm, they're fine. But if they get upset, it's volcanic for them and they can't tame it. So one thing I think it opens up is a little bit of conversation, and it's kind of neat to think about the two ends of the hormonal spectrum conversation that could be happening.
Yeah.
Because I could see this parent saying, listen, your hormones are surging. Mine are downshifting. Your hormones are causing you to have this neurological impact. Usually I don't kind of pull back the veil for teens and here's what's happening developmentally and this is why you're acting like this. On the brain stuff and the mood stuff, they like to hear it because they feel in their words, kids have said to me, I feel crazy, right? And it is actually hormonally driven mood stuff or hormones driving brain development, which drives mood. It's sort of a 3-step process. To say to them, this is natural. It won't last forever and your brain will keep maturing and then you'll have more control, I think is often very reassuring. And then to say, and now I'm on the downslope with the hormones and that's why I can be so grumpy. And,
I
and
love
then the
that.
parent could say, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But sometimes when we have a hard time with each other, that may be what's going on.
Because what families have explained this dynamic to anybody This is new to me, and I'm 46.
Well, it's sort of funny too, Reena, because I love the way this letter writer signed off of like running out of estrogen, right? It's such a funny thing too, because I think also, I'm just going to name it underneath all of this, like, okay, the kids being bananas, you feel bananas, that's a terrible combination. But there's also this sense of like, I would almost say like envy, where you're like, oh, my tank is emptying and your tank is filling, and you are
Yes.
like,
Yep.
full of juice and full of energy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, where did I leave my coffee?
Yes. No, amen. I think a lot of women out there will identify with what you just said, Lisa. So tell me a little bit more about the 16-year-old son. What else can the parent think about here?
Okay, so number one, it's not personal. When a kid ices you out, it hurts. And I think just to really recognize it's not personal. Number two, I hope she has loving co-parent type support, right? Maybe from an ex, maybe from a dear friend, maybe from a sibling, just somebody who can be like, yeah, that hurts or that stinks. I mean, I'll tell you, Rena, the other thing that I've seen be so, so hard on single parents is when they have to like go head to head with a kid. Like when a kid is misbehaved and they need to discipline the kid and the kid is like really angry at them. And, like nobody wants to do that when there's no other adult in the house. And so like when I watch single parents do this, I'm like, you are the, most incredible person on the planet, that you are holding the line, even though you're basically the only other person on the other side of that line. I also just think not giving up on talking to this boy, right? Not giving up on, this idea that like you could have a good connected relationship with a 16-year-old. I think you totally can.
So don't meet isolation with isolation. Like make a point to ask
That's
questions, be involved.
Beautiful way to say it. I think that's right. Don't sort of just collapse, give up. I think that there's a lot to be said for quiet time together. A friend of mine was telling me about her other friend who goes fishing with her son. They just go fishing. I know that that's a very specific to where I live and what's available to us kind of option. But the kid loves it. And I don't know how much they're talking or not, but they're together. So I think anything that can be offered that might be interesting to the boy, of ways of just being together, talking or not, I wouldn't devalue that. I think sometimes we feel like, connecting is like having the intense, intimate conversation. No, connecting is like you drive and he DJs and you listen to what he's listening to and you find out what music he's interested in. When I talk to teenagers, for them, that's very powerful connection with the adults in their lives.
Interesting. I've always only thought about connection with my child as communicating and talking. I never thought just being present, sitting next to them, doing an activity that they love to do can be enough too.
It can. It can be, you come into your email while they're doing their homework. If we really look at it, like we have such a specific script in mind for what connecting is.
So
like connecting is like your kid walks in the door and you're like, how was school? And they're like, oh, this thing happened. And then we say something really smart and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so helpful. That never happens. That's like so not family life. But connecting is like, let's go do something together, or let's like listen to something together, or let me sit by you. You're doing homework you don't want to do. I'm doing emails I don't want to do. Like we'll keep each other company, and like every 5 minutes we'll have an M&M together, right? Or something like that. There's lots of ways to just meet them where they are. That's what I would say about the boy.
I can't wait to call my girlfriend whose son is 13 and ask, why do you have to say, how was your day every time I come home from school? It was an angry conversation about that.
Is that what he said to her?
Yes.
He was mad at her for asking.
He was mad at her for every day after school asking, how was your day?
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
But it kind of makes sense now as to what you're saying.
It does, but like, it does if you live in teen world, right? Like, I think that's the thing, right? If you're like, oh, that they're trying to be independent, they're trying to be separate, they're highly reactive, so hence it would make sense that a 13-year-old would be like somehow badly offended by the question, how was your day? But you have to live in teen world for that to make sense. Because in every other developmental moment, you're like, what's wrong with this kid? What's the matter here?
Yeah. Or you feel offended, right? Because I want to make connection, but that's not how they want to connect.
Yeah.
I am so grateful for this conversation. I got to say, I feel like we've just scratched the surface. So maybe we need to do another one. So send us on Instagram, DM us, let us know what you think and what your thoughts are on this episode, because we'd love to know what questions you still have. Because I think this isn't enough. I mean, I think it's just a curtain raiser to this, but I'm so grateful that you shared your personal journey, because not enough people are talking about menopause, let alone puberty and menopause under one roof. So what do you have for us, Lisa, for Parenting to Go?
It's funny, Reena. I think if I had to put a headline on every last bit of my work on adolescent development, I would call it, it's not personal. Right. I think, this 13-year-old's being really snappy, this 16-year-old's being really icy. It hurts. It feels lousy. Step number one is not personal. This is typical development. I think as soon as you can take that position, right, your friend whose kid is like, "Ugh, why are you asking me about my day?" Right? As soon as you can tell yourself it's not personal, you can handle it better. And then I would just say, it's what you said, right? Put on our own oxygen masks before we try to help our kids, right? I want this woman to take good care of herself. I want her to ask for the help she deserves. Doing that and not taking the rest of it personally should ease this substantially.
Great advice all around, Lisa. Thank you for sharing your personal journey, but also helping us connect the dots with our teens and understand what it all means. I'll see you next week.
I'll see you next week.